Okay, this is going to be a how-to/demo video on how to use the Song of Ice and Fire web-based simulator at this link. When you come, you just supply any kind of a room name and you either join or create it. If you're the first player, it'll create the room. If you're the second player, you'll simply be joining it. So in this case, we'll go ahead and join the room. I already have an opponent join the room with me. At this point, I could also just, once I've joined, I can just send them this full link if I wanted to. Outside of that, there's a bunch of things here. So there's some key bindings that if you click on this question mark, it'll show you all the different key bindings. So you can move objects using WASD. You can also rotate objects using Q and E. You can slow down the movement of rotation and or movement using the Shift key. There's a right-click context menu on most things. There's also a built-in tape measure that if you move your mouse to the position you want, you can press the T key and then drag it, and it'll actually perform a tape measure action based on where your mouse is. So back outside of that, there's a delete key, so most things can be deleted by pressing delete key. There's also an undo and a redo feature by pressing R and F, which I'll demo here in a moment. There's also zoom using the scroll wheel. There's also a snap system, which are on the bars, which I'll show you in a second, which are on the units themselves. There's also full screen by pressing F11, and you can toggle the tactics/mission/dice interface by pressing the space bar. Outside of that, let's go ahead and start off by looking at some of these buttons. So we have the battle map here. We can toggle the grid system. So this is going to be a 48 inch by 48 inch or 4 foot by 4 foot battle map that we can toggle on a grid system in case we wanted to. In addition to that, we can change the battle map itself to different grid systems, or to different terrain features rather. We can also toggle the different deployment zones using this button here. It's just kind of a nice feature, but it does work in conjunction with units. So let's say I had a unit here. I can select the unit, move it up to the battle line for the first click, and then parallel align it with the second click, depending on what you wanted to do. So let's go ahead and start off with some adding a unit. We'll go ahead and add the unit in here, and it should appear right there. We'll go ahead and move it up to the battle line. The units themselves have arrows built into them that you can use for movement, but again, we can also use Q and E as well to rotate them, and hold down Shift to slow down the movement if we wanted to. And then we can also move perfectly side to side using the arrows, and again, rotation as well. And there's built-in measuring as well from here. As I mentioned a second ago, we can use R and F to rewind or fast forward to our previous movement positions, which you can see happening right here. You can also use these buttons here to initiate the fast forward and the rewind to have it go back to where it was. Okay, or rewind it. In addition to that, you'll notice that when I have my units selected, enemy units appear with little bars on them, and there's a little green bars. So the way this works is this is the charge arc that you're in. So if I was in the flank, this automatically measures programmatically for me which side facing I'm in. So in this case, I would be flank, and in this case, I'd be front. And so when I go to charge, I just select my unit, and then I can charge directly in here based on these quadrants to get perfect chargement movement, essentially. In addition to that, you'll see when you zoom in here, this does support mobile as well, so there is support for iOS and Android. I haven't tested many other mobile features, but most web browsers it can support. In addition to that, there's the inch measurements here. There's a 1-inch border. There's also a 6-inch border and a long-range border. In addition to that, there is some short-range shooting arc and a long-range shooting arc here. And most objects in the game, as I mentioned previously, have a right-click context menu built into them. So I can take off units, do the activation token, do deactivation token, weakened, whatever, set the order token on the unit. You can also right-click and delete the unit itself too. Outside of that, there is you can actually toggle that off too. So let's say you didn't want to see that, you can toggle that on and off as well. Most people will probably want to keep it on. So we'll go ahead and set these guys off to the side for a moment. There's also a game mode button. So if you want to automatically set the game mode, so we could, for example, say, let's go ahead and set a Feast of Crows. That's going to set our objectives. Now, certain objectives like the corpse piles and The weirwoods will have an area of effect. So in this case, you just hover above them and you can see the area of effect. In addition to that, you should be able to see the terrain rules in their shortened version. There's also no objectives too. And by default, when you set the game modes, the objects are locked, so you can't drag them. Prevents you from accidentally clicking on them and dragging them when you didn't mean to. So in this case, we can select them and unlock them. Pretty much most of the game objects that come from this option, from this button here, can be manually added and they can be locked. There's a bunch of different token types. There's like a pass tracker. There's also some special cards like the Water Gardens Tactics board, Verame's Eagle, that kind of thing. But those can be locked, so we can put them back in place and we can lock it. In addition to that, like let's say you won the roll and you decided you want to pick this side of the battlefield. Let's say, okay, I really don't want to be on this side because that has that. I'm going to go ahead and rotate the battlefield, and when I do that, it rotates it around basically as if you were to switch the sides of the table with the other person, and that will move everything that's on the table. Outside of that, there is an objectives deck, which is pretty straightforward. You have the draw card shuffle. It comes pre-shuffled by default, and you can also reset the tactics deck. You can also use the search feature to search through the tactics deck to pull out cards manually that way. But we go ahead and draw some cards here. And again, most everything has a right-click context menu. In this case, we can go ahead and reveal them. We can put it back on top of the deck if we wanted to, and we can also expand it. Anytime you see this symbol here, that basically means you can expand the card to view it in greater detail. It'll just expand it to full screen essentially. Outside of that, you can also link it to an objective. So if you right-click the objective card, you can link it to Objective 1, for example. And now when you hover over Objective 1, you'll actually see the card, and it'll draw a line to that objective as well. Okay, next up we got the points. So for your side, you can set your points. So like let's say we had 2 points, or let's say we had 4 points, and that'll reflect for both players. You can also select your unit or your army color. So in this case, let's say I wanted to go a little bit darker blue. Okay, so I set my army color, and now all my units should reflect, and my name will reflect and show that as well. Okay, then the next option, again, we already showed importing new units, but there's also an attachment. So like, let's say we wanted to put an attachment on here. We could, let's say we're going to put a loyalist attachment. We're going to go ahead and add that attachment onto them. The attachment card itself will show here. We can zoom in. You can see the attachment. We can right-click the attachment to set the orders on them if they did have an order, which this one doesn't, but by default it just tracks that, gives you that option. But we can also move his positioning on the tray, and we can also expand the card. Almost every card is going to have this expand option, so you can see it in full view. Next up, we have the NCUs. So we'll go ahead and say we have a let's grab a Stark, since I'm going with Starks. Arya Stark, okay. So we have Arya Stark. We'll move these objectives out of the way, and she comes with 2 order tokens to begin with. There's a bunch of options both on her and her cards. There's a right-click context menu, so we can claim the zones directly if we wanted to from there. We could also do that, or we could say, let's go ahead and pass, use the pass token. We could also not do that. We could also set the order tokens on her like to 0 because we're going to spend her tokens. We can also move the NCU back to the card if we wanted to, and there's also an influence option. So in this case, Arya doesn't, but if you do have one, you can select a unit to influence, and then it'll appear to the bottom left or to the right of that unit. And then in addition to that, that's pretty much it for NCUs, I think. Again, you can zoom in on the card if you need to, and you can also put them direct. You can also just drag and drop them if you wanted to as well, and that would be perfectly fine. All right, next up we got to the import feature. So this import feature is a single input that can be used to reload a previous saved game. Can also be used to import lists from a Song of Ice and Fire stats website. They have a TTS export option. Just copy that. Even though that's designed for TTS, it will also work for this simulator. There's also a website called builder.asongoficeandfire.fr. They have a builder which is pretty nice, and it should work for that as well. And then last but not least, War Council. If you build your list in War Council, you can export it and then paste it in here, and it'll import it there. So just to demonstrate this, we can also use our save feature button. So I'm going to go ahead and click save and confirm. And now it's been saved. So now let's say I accidentally deleted something, or maybe I wanted to play a game the next day and save it for me and my friend who are going to play again later because we ran out of time. I can go ahead and click on this import feature and then paste that same save from previously and then click confirm and select the field that I was in from the previous save. Typically you want to rejoin as the same slot that you were. So if you're player 2, rejoin as player 2, and then also select, hey, I was player 2. In this case, I'm player 1, so I'm going to click player 1, and boom, everything is reloaded back to where it was for me. Again, there's a question mark here. Which this is just the help menu. There's going to be the how-to video and some other details here, including key bindings, some basic troubleshooting steps. In addition to that, there's some helpful links, and then you can also end the game too. When you end the game, you actually can see everything that happened. So let's say you're playing against somebody, you're not sure if they did something bad, you can reveal the full log to see what they had. Like if they had searched their deck, you make sure that they had searched the right thing. In addition to that, there is a log of everything that happened from newest entries to oldest, and so you can actually go back and quickly, oh crap, what did I roll? I don't remember. You can go back and take a look here. Again, this is just designed to keep honest people honest. You know, everybody's pretty chill in this community, so I probably don't need it, but just for your own sanity if you wanted to. In addition to that, you can also select the language. So in this case, let's say I wanted it in German. That doesn't reload the cards as they are now, so you'll actually have to, one, select German or French or English, and then reload your page. And then when you reload the page, the cards will be in that language. So in this case, I'll put it back to English, press F5 to reload, and then we're good. Okay. Oh, you can also set your player name as well. So if you just click on your name, if you're player 1, you player 2, you can put whatever you want here. So let's say my name's Bob. Outside of that, there are on the cards themselves usually some kind of options to toggle on different token types. A quick example, let's say Greyjoys have special token types. Yeah, let's just put these guys out. That should be fine. They have their own special token type, of course, which in this case is the Iron Makers, and so they'll have pillage tokens built in. So let's say we get up to 2 pillage tokens, now it actually shows up, and we can also set those as well here too on the unit. But again, you have most of the common stuff, and you can take off or add wounds here from the card itself. Okay, outside of that, we also have, as I had mentioned, terrain features, and there are other objects I had mentioned as well. But oh, you know what? Let's show one more unit. So like Renly's unit. Oh, whoops. Rainbow Guard is what I'm thinking. So there are special things like the Rainbow Guard who have their own flag tokens built in, and so we can actually set the banner tokens rather manually on there, and then subtract wounds that way as well. Okay, outside of that, we get to the missions / tactics / dice feature here, and so you'll notice in this feature you can actually see the other person's mouse as they're in the board here. So anything that they're clicking on, you'll see with this little green dot. Same thing for us. In this case, we'll go ahead and set our tactics deck. We'll say it was Stark, and we'll say, I don't know, let's go with Eddard, Lord of Winterfell. So we set our tactics deck. It comes pre-shuffled, but again, there's a few options here. We can draw our tactics. We can also shuffle our deck. When you hover over, the units will show. And then we can also search our deck to pull out specific cards that we're looking for. All right, so we have the specific cards, and we can click on it. And there's a few options here. We can reveal it if we wanted to. So in this case, we revealed it, and then we hit it again. We can also play it. So as soon as we play it, the other person can see it. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate that from the opposite side here. And then there we played it, and over here we revealed it. We can also put it back into, or we can put it into the discard. We can put it into the simulator, but you have to play it before you put it into the simulator. And you can also expand it as well to full screen. You can also put it on the top or the bottom, because there are some abilities that allow you to do that in the game. So in this case, let's go ahead and say like we were playing Night's Watch. We could go ahead and put this into the simulator after we played it. And so now I can put the card in here and I can kind of keep it next to the unit because the Night's Watch cards have a lot of buffs on their units with their cards. So in this case, we'll just go ahead and put that back into the discard. And if you have enough cards in the discard it can pile up, you just click this button and you can expand the discard to see what you have in the discard. So it's pretty much the exact same thing with the tactics cards, or the missions cards rather. You can do the exact same thing with them. Oh, you got to play it first, and then whoops, play, and then we'll go ahead and put it into the simulator. And it's the same thing, and then you can see the missions cards here. Outside of that, there are dice, and so in this case, I'll go ahead and roll some dice from the opposing side. So let's say they had a bunch of dice, they rolled it. The interesting thing is as they are rolling the dice, it'll show up in the simulator just in case you're not in the interface. You'll still be able to see what they rolled. And the way that we do this here is the D3 is always going to be the gold border. If you don't need a D3, you just count it as a regular D6. But if you do need a DC, you just see the D3 value below here, and that would be the gold border dice. And then it's the same thing from our side. We can go ahead and add dice. We can manually select them. And then we can select individual ones and roll those, or we can select them all using the select all button and roll them. And then you can also select these gold border ones to select the specific ones you want. Let's say we were hitting above 4 on an attack. We can just select 1, 2, and 3 to delete those, and then select the rest, and then re-roll them maybe on for some whatever reason. And then we can also manually select those and then delete. In addition to that, there's a rewind option for the dice, so you can either rewind or fast forward to previous dice rolls just in case you needed to see what they were or replay them or you weren't sure. So in this case, the only other option we have here is the automatic panic / morale roll. So in this case, if you took a morale roll, you would just click that. These are the 2 dice for your morale. This is the D3. Or if you took a panic test, again, you just auto click, and depending on however many dice you have in here, you click that, it just auto rolls the panic for you. And then in addition to that, there's one last little feature I wanted to show, which is, okay, so if the opposing player plays a card, you can see it if you're in the simulator, of course, but if you're not in the simulator, you can still see it when they go to play it. It'll pop up here, it'll say last played, and you can actually just hover over it quickly or click on it and it'll expand it real full, so you can quickly see, oh, okay, this is what they played. I don't have to go back into the interface to see, oh, this is what they played. Okay. With that said, I think that's pretty much everything. We are working on a new version of the simulator that's going to focus primarily on. We're going to probably get rid of some of the redundant things like being able to zoom in on a card, and the tactics cards themselves are not always needed to. So we got a lot more sleek design that we learned from this version 1.0 version that we're going to slim down and hopefully put everything into one interface. So instead of there being cards that are separate, it's all boom right here to go. So with that said, we hope you like the simulator. Lots of new features. Give it a shot. We just really want people to play and have fun. Thanks. Bye.